Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 52 of the Rambler podcast, where we are passionate about sharing what makes Cathedral Prep the standard of excellence. On this episode of the podcast, we are very excited to have Emily Grenci on as a guest. Emily is originally from St. Mary's, Pennsylvania, and then went on to receive her bachelor's degree from Edinburgh University. After that, Emily began working at Villa Maria Academy as both an algebra and theology teacher. Interesting mix there. Mm-hmm. Emily was at Villa for 10 years before joining at Cathedral Prep as a campus minister and an algebra teacher. Some of her favorite parts of her job include organizing retreats, getting to know the students from various service projects, and being in charge of Mary's Day, a long-standing Villa tradition that now we do at Prep. Emily has been married to her husband Lou for 9 years, and they have 2 little boys, Colton and Simon, which they love spending time together as a family. So, Emily, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jimmy. I'm glad to do this.
Yeah. Well, I know it's end of the school year time.
Yes.
All the projects. So we appreciate you taking the time out to sit down with me for this.
Yes, it's definitely the busy month of May.
The other day, as I hit May 1st or 2nd, I just kind of thinking, holy cow, the end of the year, yes. Activities are upon us.
Yep.
Outreach Day, Sports Day, Mary's Day.
Yes. Yeah, it's like the trifecta. And then let the seniors finish off with Mary's Day, and then they get into baccalaureate and graduation, all those fun things.
All the fun things. We still do senior breakfast, yep. Senior banquet, graduation practice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
Senior retreat happening in there.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
Yeah, so many good things.
Well, I could say we're very appreciative of all you do for the students, for the school. Yeah, I mean, it's a big part of why we're Prep, right, is our faith component of the school, learning about the service aspect, the faith projects, all the different things that you do, in leading the team here. So we're happy to have you and all the work you do.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
It's great to be part of the family.
Speaking of being a part of the family, let's talk about how you even became a part of the family, so to speak. That was a good transition there. You like that? But, going back at your time at Villa, I mentioned from Edinburgh, then you started Villa. Can you talk about how you even led into getting a position at Villa?
Yeah, so I had known Father Shane Matthew, and he was working at Villa at the time, and there was going to be a theology position opened up. So he kind of just tossed it out to me. I was in the job hunt time, and I was like, yeah, I'll put my application in, why not? At the same time, I was doing a lot of subbing, so I was like, let me just put that in there. I ended up getting an interview with Sister Mary, and coincidentally, they needed a math teacher and a theology teacher, which was, my degree was in math. So I was like, great, I can do this, and she hired me. And at the time, Father Shane was still supposed to be there. He ended up getting transferred. So I was like, oh man, the one person that I knew that was supposed to be at the school, he ended up getting transferred. But I started teaching freshman theology at the time and started teaching math as well, the algebra class. And then what ended up happening, I started my master's for pastoral studies at the time. So that gave me a little bit more incentive to teach the theology classes.
Gotcha.
So I got my master's within those first couple years of teaching too.
Yeah, I knew you were involved in both. And then reading the bio again, I was like, oh, wow, she is kind of in 2 different worlds there with, math and theology. That's a lot of different...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice because the math gives me like that black and white, like you get to an answer. Like,
yeah.
Here it is, you are right or wrong. The theology gets to a lot more discussions and a lot more, hey, how does this work? What's your thoughts on this? A lot more discussion based.
Random question. Does that tough for you teaching both? Because I would think you have to use 2 totally different parts of your brain, throughout the day, talking with students about, these topics. Yeah,
so right now I teach 2 algebra classes and then go into campus ministry. And I actually really enjoy it because it's not really tough. It seems like a natural flow because I've been doing it for so many years now. And when I had taught theology and algebra, I actually taught the same students, which was cool because then if a kid wasn't good at math, they brought themselves back out in theology or vice versa. So I got to see like 2 different sides of students at the time, which was really cool to experience.
That is cool. And what year was it that you started at Villa then?
I started in 2013, I guess.
Okay, the fall of 13. Yeah, so I guess that makes 10 years there, right?
Yeah, it was 10 years at Villa and now 2 years at Prep.
Oh my goodness, that's so cool. I'm sure that time went by so quick.
Yes, looking back it did.
When you do look back at your time at Villa, obviously a long-standing tradition of a school, but you were from out of town.
Yeah.
How'd you enjoy getting to learn about the Villa community and the alumni and everything involved with the school?
So I think it was a really great school to have my first teaching job at, and now it's neat to say that I'm still here.
Yeah.
But I think Villa, and I think it's the same way with the students, but Villa really helped me grow up because I started off as this fresh teacher, and like the other teachers that were there were great to like just welcome me right in. And I mean, I'm still really good friends with so many that I started with, and even ones who have moved into different positions and jobs. Like I'm still really good friends with them.
Yeah.
It's cool because I think that's how that works for the students too. Like they come in as freshmen and they are like, who are these people? I don't know them. And then they graduate 4 years later and they have all these great friends and all these cool standings with the school. And it's kind of what happened with me with Villa. Like I came in, I made these great friendships, and now life obviously has changed, but those standings are still all there, which is neat.
Yeah, that is very cool. That is one thing I love about Prep and Villa is just, people who just care, about the students, care about, relationships with the other faculty members, staff members. It definitely is more of a family atmosphere.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. And one of the things I was going to ask too is, so you were there for about 10, maybe 8 years, I guess, when you found the news out about the consolidation, and you were there for another 2 before it was officially moved on. What was your initial reaction to kind of getting the news that, oh my gosh, life's going to be totally different?
Yeah. I think surprised would probably put a good word to it. It's weird because everything happened within the COVID time, so I feel like life was in an influx to begin with.
True.
Everything was like, oh wow, life is changing, and life is changing again. And, okay, here we go. What's happening? So I think I never experienced the school separately because I am from out of town, so I never knew Villa just as Villa. I never knew Prep just as Prep. They've always been connected to me. So I guess I was surprised, but I think at the same time, I don't know if it's right to say that the writing was on the wall, maybe, because I think we were slowly starting to see like, okay, Prep students are getting this opportunity. Villa students are getting this opportunity. Could we put them together?
Yeah.
Could we kind of team up? I know we were having so many meetings across campuses of, okay, Prep teachers are going over to Villa for a faculty meeting or vice versa. And I think it was just kind of like surprised, but at the same time, once you kind of sat with it, it was like, this was bound to happen and good things will come from it.
And I think that's one thing people overlook a little bit between just thinking it was just strictly financial reasons to combine one campus. But also there's a lot of strength, in numbers, so to speak, and all the logistical things you just mentioned of, all right, faculty has to go over there for a meeting today or this way. I remember when I was first on staff with Prep during my first stint, when I was working at the event center, it was like, meeting at Villa, the next time is at Prep. And it's just, I think it was, like you said, writing on the wall in a sense, but no matter when it would have happened, whether it was 2020, I should say, that we got word, or later down the road, it was going to be a surprise anyway.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think people would have taken it hard either way, and then it was just, here's the time that it's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. When you, last question here about Villa, but when you do look back on your time at Villa, I guess outside of like the relationships, you hit on that a little bit, what are some of your favorite memories about your time teaching there?
I think Villa was just a special place in the sense that it was all girls. So there were certain things that we could do as an all-girls school that you just won't do co-ed. I remember, and I think some of the things that were just so outside of the realm of high school, like we did a fashion show. Like NHS did a fashion show for prom. We raised money for organizations. And I remember sitting there thinking like, no other high school student is receiving a fashion show right now, and I'm getting paid to watch a fashion show. So there was that. Different, like Celebrate Gifts when we did our talent show, that was special. Like just some of those assemblies we had. I think back to sports day when they did the murals and there was the taping, like the taping day. So like there were just certain things where I'm like, this is not a real high school right now. Like, how is this working? But even those things, like it just bonded the students in unique ways.
Yeah. So. Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, there's definitely, I love hearing the stories about the alums from Villa who hold such special memories from the things like you just mentioned, all the stuff that has been happening at the school. And some of those traditions have carried on at Prep, not the fashion show, right?
Right. And that even died the last couple of years, or kind of finished off the last couple of years at Villa. But time and place for everything.
Yeah.
Which is what I think about Villa. Like there was a time and a place for everything that happened.
Right. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So fast forward, now you're here at Prep, and you're in the role as campus minister.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that all entails for you?
Yeah, so I actually started as campus minister my last year or two at Villa as well, and then I was working very closely with Father Mike DeMartinez and Father Jason Fye, and now still getting to work with them. I share an office with Father Jason, which is neat. But a lot of it is doing the retreats. So the retreats in the fall for grade levels. We have a campus ministry leaders retreat coming up later in May. We have the second senior retreat happening later in May. We do all the mass planning. So I work with the readers, I work with Eucharistic ministers, I work with the altar servers planning the masses. Catholic Schools Week falls under campus ministry. Mary's Day, Outreach Day, that falls under campus ministry. I also take on the role of like some of the service related stuff. So the students obviously need service hours throughout the school year. So I send out all the emails. So when an organization says, hey, we need volunteers, I'm the one who directs that out to the students. We also recently started sending students over for the Barber Center. So we go on a monthly basis to the Barber Center, and that falls under campus ministry as well. So a lot of like little projects, but also bigger projects as well throughout the year. And I remember being nervous, like when I became more full-time campus minister, like what's going to fill my days? Like, am I going to have a job to fill this? And now I look back and think that was probably one of the silliest thoughts that I could have had, because there's days where I'm like, I don't know if I sat down yet today.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it's a very rewarding position too, because not that math isn't important, but when you're talking about faith, it's a little bit up there on the list, you know? So I'm sure you've had some really great experience with the students too, who I'm sure, you know, when you're in grade school, you're maybe not doing a lot of that stuff, but then you transition to high school and now you're doing a lot of the things that you just mentioned. I'm sure it's been pretty neat to hear the students' perspective too as you've worked with them. Yeah,
it has been. I think one of the coolest things when you get to high school, you said like elementary school versus high school, there's that element of the students get to choose it in a different way. So every week we do like campus ministry lunches. They're optional. Things in elementary school, you have to show up to things.
Right.
Now it's optional. So the kids get to come up, we get to pray together, we get to kind of just form community together. Like those are cool moments to watch the students choose the faith on their own.
Yeah.
One of the things that we started doing this year, it's a sad thing, but anytime like a parent or a sibling dies, we do a prayer service, and it lines up within the funeral time. So when students can't get to the funeral, they can come to a prayer service.
Yeah.
We have anywhere from like 15 to 40 kids show up to that, like just to pray for the person who's passed away. It's really neat to like walk with the kids as they are learning to pray for those things, as they're praying for those things, and let them choose it too, which is neat.
Yeah, and I know a lot of the Prep and Ville alums who are listening can feel the same way I do. I mean, those are some of the things that you really hold on to from your time as a student. So I'm very happy to hear about all the great work you're doing with the students to have that faith element as part of their life. Because, you know, once you leave high school, you know, you're also on to college out of your parents' house. And, you know, for most people, they're out in the world now. And so we hope that during the 4 years we have them here, they get that faith aspect of their life, you know, on the right trajectory. Right,
yeah, and at least it's part of their thought process, and they can look back and say, oh yeah, that was a huge part of my high school experience, and I want to continue that.
Yes. So when you transitioned from Villa to Prep last school year, how did that transition go for you? Were you, I don't want to say nervous about coming to Prep? I mean, now you had boys after 10 years of teaching girls. Can you talk to us a little about what that transition was like for you coming over to Prep?
Yeah, so I remember thinking, like, what's it going to be like to teach boys? Because I hadn't had boys. So I'm like, is this, what will this look like? But honestly, the boys are really fun. They brought, I don't know, I teach academic algebra with the boys and obviously the girls now too, but they just have an extra sense of joy into the classroom. And I think the transition looking back was easier than I thought it was going to be, but at the same time there was unexpected challenges. So everything was new. And as the adults in the room and as like the campus minister and having different roles it was almost like an expectation of, well, we know what's going on even though we didn't.
Right.
So like, it was like being a first-year teacher all over again, where you're trying to stay like a chapter ahead of the kids or maybe a page ahead of the kids. And it was like, okay, what's this going to look like?
Yeah.
Even going from something small, like Villa was pretty small, to then basically over doubling the size.
Right, true.
I don't know all the teachers. Like people are talking about like, oh, I have so-and-so as a teacher. I'm like, nice to meet them. I don't know who they are. So some of those things were just a little bit more challenging from last year. This year just feels so much more comfortable in that regard.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot more familiarity with everyone.
Yes. So I think some of the unexpected challenges kind of arose from last year within that transition. It was great on a campus ministry perspective because Father Jason and I feel like we were just doing phone calls back and forth so much of, okay, what are you doing on your campus? What are you doing on yours? Just being able to work together on that and do like one set of things was a lot better on the campus ministry end. But again, it was, what do we want this to look like?
True.
And trying to form what we wanted things to look like because there was no set guidebook anymore.
Yeah. And that's a great perspective to have as well, where you can almost refresh the whole program and create for it in this new school what you wanted it to be. I'm sure that was an exciting time to be able to go from, I don't know what's going to fill my days, to now I don't know where I have time in my days.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely a transition. It was cool to let the kids kind of navigate some of those things. Like I remember last year at the end of the year we had our campus ministry leaders retreat. And last year we carried over, Prep had always done campus ministry lunches, so we continued those last year. And we were doing like an every other week type of deal. And the students last year were like, can we just do those every week? It would be so much easier to know when they are.
Yeah.
So that's what we do this year. Every single Thursday there's a campus ministry lunch. And watching the kids form that and the students say, wow, I made that change.
That's cool.
Like that's a neat aspect of the school's transitioning to.
It's like you're a part of it, but in the same sense, you're just helping empower the kids.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's ultimately the goal, right?
Yep.
We want these kids to become, leaders by the time they leave prep, and these are the things that are helping as components to that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And let alone, I know we mentioned in your bio 2 boys, so hopefully now having the boys at prep are helping you for that.
Yes.
How old are your boys?
2.5 and 3.
Oh my goodness, yes. So are they roughhousing at home together yet?
Oh, yes. Yes. There's certain times, and maybe not the best, but I'm like, where did that scratch come from? Somebody's crying, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And they get over it pretty quick, because I got the 2 boys, but then 2 girls. The girls, they'll hold on to it for a long time. The boys, they'll kind of cry for a minute, and then they're wrestling again.
Yes, that's a good description of boys.
Yeah. Oh, it's too funny. I know we mentioned some of the, things that you do in terms of like Outreach Day, Mary's Day. Can you talk to us about the significance of kind of holding on to some of those villa traditions, bring them to prep, and then also, having the traditions at prep, keeping those. Can you talk to us about some of those traditions, why it was important that we wanted to hold on to them, and just what it means for the school as a, organization?
Yeah, I think traditions are super important just to be able to have some connection to the school. I think it's really neat for students who are going to school now. They can talk about going to Box Village, which is something Prep had started, and then we had started at Villa, and now we continue it. They can talk to alumni and be like, oh, I'm sleeping outside tonight in a box. And alumni know what's going on, and there's a connection there, which is obviously part of the purpose of the traditions, to be able to say, hey, I've been there, I've done that.
Yeah.
So Box Village is something that falls under campus ministry that was a prep tradition that we've been continuing on. The campus ministry lunches was a prep tradition that we've been carrying on. I know, like last year, students, there's one that comes back to a couple of the campus ministry lunches, and he's like, hey, I was here last year. I sat in that seat, I know.
Yeah.
So that's cool to see the alumni connections there. And then Outreach Day was a tradition that had been happening and kind of on separate campuses. I think it started at Prep.
Yeah.
And then Villa took it or started it as well, and now we are continuing it as Prep, just to let the kids go out into the community, which is a really cool thing. And then Mary's Day was a tradition at Villa, which I know was like a talk of, are we going to have Mary's Day? Like, is this going to get canceled? And luckily I got to run one of the Mary's Days at Villa as campus minister to then do it at Prep last year. And I think it was this like huge success last year. It was a really rewarding day to even hear some of the boys, the seniors last year, say, wow, I wish I would have had this 3 years ago. Like, I wish I would still be at Prep to be able to experience this year after year.
Yeah.
So I think it's fun to be able to carry over like past things into the school year.
Yeah.
And say, hey, we're still keeping our own traditions, but we're revamping them. And we're making them our own now.
That was one of the things I had heard about Mary's Day forever, just always, whether it was friends of mine who went to Villa or just talking to alums through the years. Last year was the first time I ever attended Mary's Day.
Okay.
And being at the Cathedral, seeing the significance of the event, just the ceremony of it and what it was, I was blown away. And I thought to myself also, like, wow, I didn't know what I was missing out on.
Right.
Like, this is such a cool tradition, and I see now why year after year you talk to alums, they always bring up Mary's Day as one of their favorite days, and of course the infamous Sports Day, more on the fun side of things.
Yes.
And that's also coming up for, is that under you, Sports Day?
It is not under me.
Okay.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness. I actually love how the calendar works though, because it goes Outreach Day, Sports Day, and then Mary's Day. So it's like, let's go out and serve, now let's compete against each other, and now let's kind of remember we're a family.
Yeah.
So it's a neat end of the year. It's like all happens within a week time span.
Yes, absolutely. It's like those last 2-3 weeks of May there, it's just mayhem.
Yes.
Get it? No pun intended.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, that was good. Well, we appreciate the time. I just have a couple more questions for you as we wind down here. And I know you've talked extensively about prep and Villa and whatnot, but as a whole, how would you sum up your time so far through these 2 years, and what are you excited about, for what the future holds at prep?
I would say my time here has been marked by transition and just learning and growing, which has been really neat to be able to be part of. Like, I know you think, oh wow, this is like such a small thing, but this is really a big thing, right?
Yeah.
Like the combination of the schools, I think there was so much anticipation for it leading into it, and now we're doing it. It's neat to be part of that. It's neat to watch alumni come back in and speak and share their memories and know we're all part of this. So I think it's kind of just a overall cool time to be part of the school.
Yeah.
And I really look forward to seeing how the students really start to grow into leadership positions. I think last year they were a little bit more held back. They were watching as things were forming, and even watching this year, they're starting to step up into more roles.
Yeah.
So I think looking into the future, I think we have some exciting things coming up we're here now, and now we can grow.
There is definitely that sense of momentum, excitement in the school where you can just feel like things are on a good trajectory right now. Yeah. Yes. Amidst the chaos that happened for the last few years as we transitioned and now we're here. I mean, that group for next year, I mean, the juniors, sophomores, and freshmen will only know co-ed prep. The seniors will be the only class that ever had the separate prep and Villa campuses. So, to your point with the student leadership positions, things like that, it's just an exciting time.
Yeah, because even the seniors, they would have known what they were walking into.
Right.
Like, they received Cathedral prep acceptance letters across the board. So, I think it's an exciting time.
That's very cool. Last question for you is, what does it mean to be a Rambler? And that could apply to what does it mean to be a Victor, in a sense, from your time at Villa. But I love to ask this question. I think it's just a fun one. But to you, Emily, what does it mean to be a Rambler?
I think two things. Number one, rooted in faith. Being able to say I can bring my faith to my life and share how it's part of my life and part of my career and part of my time as a student. And I think it's also community. Really being able to say I'm part of something bigger. I'm part of the Cathedral Prep and Villa Maria Academy family. This is, even though I didn't graduate from those schools, I didn't have the opportunity to, I'm not from here, but I really think it's a neat community. You meet somebody else and you say, oh, I work at prep, and somehow they have a connection to the school. Yeah. So between faith and community, I think that's what being a Rambler would be to me.
Yeah. That's a great answer, and I love it. And I think, like you said, being a part of the family, the community. I think once you're a part of the faculty or staff for more than 10 years, you're adopted into being an alumnus. So.
Perfect. Wonderful.
But no, in all seriousness, I love being able to talk to you about this stuff because it's the most important part of what we can offer at our school, and what separates us from everyone else is the faith component.
Sure. Yes.
So just thank you for behind the scenes, all the coordinating work you do, all the work you do with the students, leading up this campus ministry program and really providing a great foundation of faith for our students that they'll carry for their lifetime. So,
well, thank you so much for having me, Jimmy. This was great.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.